Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to you all to our New Year piano recital. It's good to see you all. Wonderful turnout for a frosty day. This is the only month of the year in which we actually have two recitals in the 1 month. Because in addition to this recital, we have our normal fourth Friday concert at 1 o'clock. And you would be very welcome to come for that. For refreshments at 12:30, concert at 1 o'clock on Friday the 27th of this month. And this month we're welcoming the pianist and composer Maciusz Retner, who is a newcomer to us. So we look forward to his concert, which I think will be an interesting blend of the old and the new. Can I remind you that we do not charge admission to our recitals, but we do ask that you will make a contribution if you are able, as we can only put these concerts on because of your generosity. And so I would invite you to make a contribution at the plates which are near our entrances, or if you haven't come with any cash, we do have a machine which will enable us to take your money from a card. So if you feel able to give, we would be very grateful for that. This afternoon we're very privileged to have our friend Masa Tayama coming to play for us again. He's been a great friend to this recital series over the years, and we're delighted that he's come to play for us again today. So can you give a very warm welcome to Masa Tayama.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's lovely to be back. Some of you may be aware I haven't been very well, and in fact I'm going through in between treatments at the moment, so it's a good period of time for me, no side effects, brilliant. But again, some of you may know that we've been running concerts on a canal boat, and we've had 8 concerts so far over the last 2 weeks, which has been quite interesting. But it is a familiar piano, and I'm looking forward to rediscovering this piano that I haven't played for over a year now. So I'm going to start with a bit of Rackmaninov. I have been drawn to his works for many years now. The Bells, Opus 3, number 2, and the Melodie in E major, Opus 3, number 3. They are both very much what we call his early works, still very much under the influence of Chopin, Liszt, Brahms, the Romantic period. And he died in 1943, so we do refer to him as a 20th century composer. But whereas his contemporaries were experimenting with the more, I wouldn't say obscure, but more experimental forms of harmony and new expressions, I feel he still stuck to the more conventional harmony melody writing and still came up with something quite unique. He's known to have always consulted his colleagues and his pianist friends. Do you think this works? Do you think this is all right? He did revise a lot of his own compositions as well. And that sort of modesty, I feel, does show in his music. I never feel, there are obviously loud moments, fast passage works, but never for show. I never feel that they're for the purpose of showing off. There's always a musical message behind his writing. And so I'm going to start with the 2 works. The Bells, when he toured Britain as a pianist, he didn't know what he was really focusing on. He was a pianist, he was a conductor, he was a composer. He did struggle with that throughout his life, but of course we have his legacy in the form of his compositions as well as some of his recordings as well. But when he toured Britain as a pianist, the audience apparently didn't let him go until he performed this particular work, to the point where he's known to have said later on, well, aren't they interested in some of my other compositions? But there is a draw to this, I can feel, and he is known to have tired of this a little bit, but I've performed this 8 times in the last couple of weeks. I still haven't tired yet at all. Again, number 3, I will play both at the same, one after another. Number 3, E major, the Melodie. Again, it's the melody and the accompaniment writing, but the accompaniment really has this feeling of this water lapping against the banks, and the melody firstly appears in this beautiful cello cello line. So much so that it was becoming such a favorite of ours that we actually featured it, if you haven't come across it, as a theme music for what we call the piano boat. It's been abandoned a bit, but this is not a plug, but I suppose it is. It's a bit abandoned actually, but if you have any time, do look at the piano boat and you can see us being silly on YouTube. But it is the theme music that we decided to use for that as well. So the bells and the melody in E major. Thank you all coming, and I'm delighted to be here myself. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I should point out, when I said 8 cruises, it sounded like a lot, but I didn't really do much. My wife did all the cooking because we serve afternoon tea. I just played and drove the boat, so it was quite easy for me. Although I did do the recital 8 times and the bells did feature 8 times. Rubinstein, the famous pianist, played the Tchaikovsky piano concerto like 100 times apparently, and he did get a bit bored apparently, and he's known to have changed the fingerings during performance just to keep the excitement going. I have never got to that stage just yet. Now we turn to something a bit more festive as we approach the end of this holiday festive period, the variations on a theme, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The name can be a bit deceiving in that it's actually quite hard to play. The variation is a form of composition where the composer can really flex their compositional skills and the muscles. So there's a lot involved. Sometimes it's in the right hand, sometimes the feature is in the left hand, and then there's the middle part. Lots go on. And the 8th variation is a somewhat somber C minor. So you know when we get to the somber C minor, we're beyond halfway there. And if you've ever seen the film Amadeus, it goes back a bit now, but in that film Salieri describes of Mozart's music as filled with unfulfillable longing. And the 11th variation, just before the last, the finale, does, I feel, appropriately describe this. It's got the certain feeling that it's not attainable. And Mozart is actually the composer of which his works I was drawn to when I was very little, and that's how I started the piano. So whilst, just because we've been so engrossed in this cruise lately, the boat is called Rackmaninov, and if I ever get a narrower boat, which I'm eyeing on, I'd probably call it Mozart. So That's the Mozart variations, 12 variations by Mozart. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, last but not least is Beethoven, and I am going through his entire, 32 piano sonatas. It's quite interesting to rediscover some of his early works. Loosely we divide his composition period, some say 4, but I tend to agree with the 3. The early works where he is very much under the influence of the classical period, Mozart, Haydn and their contemporaries, and the heroic period, the middle period, where this Moonlight fits into, and then the more contemplative, introspective later works. This Moonlight he titled Quasi una Fantasia, almost like a fantasy, and certainly it steers away quite a lot from the traditional sonata form that Haydn essentially established. It's often referred to as the 3 grand sonatas, namely the Pathétique, Moonlight and the Appassionata, whereas the Pathétique and the Appassionata certainly feels appropriate in its passion and sometimes the anger, the frustration that is in the pieces. The Moonlight and Appassionata he certainly did not title himself. The publishers titled them to generate some more interest, to sell a few extra copies, which would have been standard practice for marketing as it must be today. But whereas the other 2 feels more appropriate, this one is slightly controversial. Someone from the publisher saw this beautiful reflection on the Lake Lucerne, the moonlight, and thought, oh, this is rather beautiful. Let's call it the Moonlight. But at best, it applies to the first movement only. It is quite quiet, but there's quite a lot of pain involved, I feel. There's this very direct clash that happens of semitones, which to the audience of the day, where they were used to the star galante, the elegant music by Mozart and Haydn, it may well have come even more as a shock to the audience of the day than it does to us today. But there are these moments, as well as the rhythmic motive of the Fate knocking on the door from the famous Fifth Symphony also is hidden in the first movement. I feel there's a lot more than just a beautiful Moonlight. But I always feel it's one thing to read about it in a book, someone's life, but it's very difficult to imagine what would have been going through his mind at the time. We all know that he eventually did lose his hearing entirely, but at that stage he didn't know which way it was going to go, particularly as a musician, as a composer, he must have found it particularly daunting, the prospect. And nevertheless, he did manage to write a short, almost humorous second movement, from which the first movement goes straight into, before the iconic finale, the dramatic third movement. So here's the 3 movements of Moonlight Sonata to finish. Thank you all very much again. Thank you very much. Well, last year I had to cancel all my performing engagements. I think I did one recital in the Midlands. And this year, of course, I've only done one, but this is being the 2nd of January. But it's, what we have managed to do is to, since the lockdown, we've been carrying on from the boat to do online concerts. But I must say it's nice to be able to react in person. I mean, we had that period of time where everything was locked down, of course, and it is a pleasure. But it is quite a unique experience for me as well, because I haven't really got anything that I'm booked to do too much. This year's resolution for me is to not do anything, because I always end up doing things. Not that I'm a workaholic, but I always end up taking on things. So this year, I'm just going to try not to do anything. But no recital is quite complete without a little encore. So I am going to finish with something quieter, and this is a favorite of mine, and I'm sure I have performed this every time I'm here. It gives that continuity, so I'm going to call it good luck. So I'm going to play the Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. This really is my favorite. And one thing, because it went okay, I always tell my students in live performance, it doesn't matter if things happen, it's part and parcel. If you want the perfect rendition, just put on a CD, I always tell them. But in fact, because of this medicine that I've had to have, this side effect, unfortunately, is the peripheral neuropathy. So now, because it went all right, I can tell you that I can't really feel my fingertips, so I don't know how I'm playing myself. But I would imagine that I'm just using my ear more than I used to in really wanting to get the sound I want. So it has been a unique experience throughout these monthly online concerts that I've actually been doing. So any support there would be most welcome, because I am intending to carry on, and it has been most encouraging that I did have a focus even though I had to cancel all my other performing engagements. But here it is, the C-sharp minor Nocturne by Chopin. Thank you all again for coming. Thank you.
I know you'd like another hour. I would. But thank you so much, Masa. We do appreciate you coming today, and we hope we will see you again before too long. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to mention